Hi, everyone. Welcome to Grain Therapy, the woodworking podcast where we discuss our passions, methods, and personal growth as we build our woodworking businesses. This episode is Break on Glue to the Other Side. After a few stressful glue up stories, Matt and I explore the many facets of design that interest us. This is my favorite episode so far, so I hope you enjoy.
And we are live.
How you doing? I just got Summit EPA today, just keeping it classic.
Okay, what do you think is in this glass right here?
It looks like
It's not salt water.
Sprite Zero.
Not quite. It's rum
Okay.
and Mountain Dew, but it's the voodoo flavor, I guess.
Is that the
Zero sugar.
watermelon?
It's a mystery flavor. I think it's like a white cherry or something.
Mystery flavor.
It literally says mystery flavor on it.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I don't normally, I used to drink a lot of Mountain Dew in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And the install I was at on Saturday, that it was actually on. It was on Saturday. We're gonna stick with that. It was on Saturday. Yeah. I did not start it on Friday at all. But the install I was at, the guy threw a 12-pack of that in my pickup while I was there because he's got a bunch of extras and he's kind of a friend. So he just threw me a 12-pack of Mountain Dew, and I was like, okay, I'll try it. And then it goes really good with rum, actually. I don't know. That's
I can see that. Yeah. I come from a Mountain Dew family too, so we've been around it a lot, but not that mystery flavor one.
So if it's not the mystery flavor, what is your flavor?
Just regular. And then Gamer Fuel, get the cherry. Yeah.
Oh, I know Game Fuel. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're on a strict no real sugar pop zone here in the house.
Smart.
But every once in a while, I'll get the full calorie stuff as a treat.
Honestly, like the real sugar pop makes me tired now, and I used to down them in high school. I'd have a voltage and a normal almost every night.
Voltage, yeah.
Probably. I loved the voltage. Mountain Dew voltage was my shit. That stuff. And then I went to college, and the first year I didn't drink a ton. The first semester, I drank on weekends, but I wasn't drinking often because I couldn't buy. So then I'd have to get somebody to buy for me. Back in college, kids don't drink underage, obviously. But the guy in the room next to me, he was obsessed with Mountain Dew more than I was. I just liked it. And he would drink probably 6 a day. And I was like, dude, you're going to get a kidney stone or something. This is not going to be good for you. So then we went in on, there was a huge sale at Sam's Club or Costco or something. And we went in on all the flavors, and we got a couple 12-packs of every flavor. And then we had one for each day of the week because there were all these flavors. And then since there were 8 flavors total, we had 2 Dew Tuesdays. So this guy, I sound like a lunatic here, but this is
that's so good.
This is 2016 for me, so that kind of tells you how old I am. But yeah, he'd come over to my room and knock on the door and be like, "I want my ration of Mountain Dew for the day." So I'd limit him to 1 a day, except for 2 Dew Tuesdays. So I remember 2 Dew Tuesdays was Pitch Black and Live Wire, and that was a great day of Mountain Dew. So. Anyway,
no, that's awesome. I've got one other Mountain Dew story. So my brother's still big into it, and so it's been awesome that now we've got a house and a dog. And when we go on vacation, we have him come over, and he always leaves some in the fridge for me. I'm just like,
yes. I mean, there's something romantic about it after you haven't had it for a while, just to have a nice crisp one. Yeah. And this, yeah, pretty good stuff.
Not good for you.
So yeah, at the install, this guy threw in the 12-pack, so that's how we got here. That's where we ended up. But that was probably the highlight of the install. Overall, it took 4 hours.
4 hours, okay.
I had to ask for help, only in getting it into the closet. So for anybody who hasn't heard, it's a set of cubbies. So it's 48 inches wide, and the opening is 48.25 inches wide. So, but I intentionally made it 47.5 instead of the drawings were 48 inches, and I was like, that quarter inch isn't going to be, something's going to be harder. So I wanted an extra quarter inch of buffer.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, it's an entryway closet where you have the 2 accordion doors,
Mm-hmm.
or not accordion doors, but
They fold.
folding doors. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's hidden behind that, and it's going to have a bunch of containers for arts and crafts materials or whatever they put in there. And they're going to have some brooms on one side, like a broom rack, and then a small coat rack on the other side, like super small, like 12 inches for the rod length, 12 and a half. So I made this whole unit, and when I was building it, I was going to build it into 2 units, so about 24 inches wide each, and then combine them in person.
Mm-hmm.
Then I could easily just slide them in,
Yeah.
and then I don't have to worry about maneuverability. But the key with this cubby system is the top set of cubbies, the top of the unit folds up, so that way you have access to the upper part of the closet. And because these ceilings are probably like 12, 13, 14 feet high. I should actually know that. It's probably about 12. So but there's plenty of space up above, and they didn't want cubbies all the way up because then you can't really get into them because the wall is blocking.
Mm-hmm.
So the top folds up, and there's still 8 or so inches of depth that you could put like a step stool in, and then you could step up basically and get into the top of the closet. So by the top of these cubbies folding away, then there are on each side above the open areas down below. So on the left and right of the unit is where the brooms and the coat rack are, and those are like open spaces. On top of those are shelves, so it looks like it's all one flat top. Like the closet is only 7 feet tall.
Okay.
But when you flip the top up, there's a shelf there, and then there's a shelf above it at like 10 feet high.
Okay.
So you could put seasonal stuff, and that's on both sides. So there are four hidden shelves up above the unit.
Nice.
And that was kind of like me trying to make a built-in cubby interesting to build, instead of just plain. So there's a whole hinged setup. Anyway, the top of it, since it's one big piece, in order to mount the hinges and make sure it fit all right and everything, I couldn't build them in 2 separate units. I wanted them secured and permanent. So I screwed them together, filled the screw holes, and painted over everything. And now I have one big unit that's 47 3/4 wide, and I got to get it through a 48 1/4, 48 1/8 inch gap. And the only problem was, like, everything was lining up, everything was square. So I had it on a moving blanket, and I was trying to tip it into place, like tip it down into the closet and then pull it up through.
Mm-hmm.
But there was trim on the ground, which was less than 48, obviously. So I'm on the inside of the closet hoping to tip it toward myself, but there's trim, and there's no real great handhold for me to lift it and pull it in and up around the trim. So I didn't want to do it from the outside either. I was just worried I was going to slip and then ding up a wall. Like, I could have tried to muscle it in. If it was my house, I might have, but not worth redoing drywall for that. So I asked Nate, the client, who's a buddy I used to actually live with back in the day. He's way bigger than me, but so he's Mr. Muscles. I was like, hey, I'm trapped in this closet. Can you just come give me just the boost to push it up over the trim, and then I'll guide, like I'll lift and tilt. And then so he just added some force from the outside, and then I was able to get it up and over the trim, and then we were good. So nice. I didn't want to ask for any help because that's awkward.
Seems like minimal help, though.
It was minimal help. So that was good. And I was originally going to have somebody on the install with me, but then scheduling didn't work out. So that wasn't going to be a problem. But then, whatever. Yeah,
you managed.
And
then, so built in, done, delivered.
Done. It's in place. It's trimmed out. I hope they love it. Building stuff in place, there's always little things I wish I could have stayed longer and fixed. So there's some caulk lines that I could have maybe gone back on. Like, I caulked all the gaps, but like you never know if they're gonna crack open, like not crack open, but when they throughout the seasons they're gonna do that. So if it was my own house, I'd recaulk after a couple weeks or something to give a second layer.
Sure.
Which seems to work for when I do it here. And there's some little pinholes from the 18 gauge nailer that I wasn't able to get filled. But they're small and hopefully discreet enough.
And it's
And
inside a closet.
it's inside a closet with closed doors. So I'm trying not to like beat myself up for like,
Yeah.
but trim work is not my strongest suit and I don't ever want it to be. It's just not that fun. Like it worked, like I can do it. So, but yeah, so it's just small trim that I painted along with the rest of it too. So it's just like these small 1/2 inch by 3/4 inch or 3/8 by 3/4 inch rectangles.
Sure.
So yeah,
Sweet. And then you've got one last paint job, but not a
the
built-in.
last time I will pick up a paintbrush. Yes. Not actually. You'll see me in a couple months. I'll do another paint job probably because I'll forget how bad this one was. No, it's just I'm bad at quoting painting because I feel like it goes faster than it does. And
I see. Yeah.
the money, it costs so much. And then I'm like, nobody's going to pay for that. And that's like,
Mhm.
where am I going to take the hours out? I can paint faster than that. Like that's the hard part.
Yeah.
Also, I got to get a chair that doesn't make so much noise. I'm sorry to everybody listening, but someday soon. Yeah, I got to make this synth box, which is basically an instrument case for a friend. And so that's just going to hold some modules that his
Mhm.
synthesizer runs through. And that's about all I know about it. I don't really
Okay.
know how to explain it, but he makes cinematic music for like movie type stuff or any of that as like a side thing. But he's looking to like score some like small movie stuff.
Sure.
So he makes like epic type music, kind of like something that would be on the background of like Interstellar or Inception or something.
Okay, cool.
So real heavy sci-fi, really cool stuff. So he's trying to get more legit, and he's built himself a box to hold his modules, and he's hand making these too. So he's like getting these laser cut parts, and
Hmm.
he's soldering every wire together, and so he's
Hmm.
building his own, and it's like down to the every solder wire. So it's pretty intricate. So
Okay.
pretty sweet gig. But this one is for one of his friends. He's already made himself one of these boxes, but the guy who makes music with him needs his own that you can travel with. So it's going to
Okay.
have some rubber feet on it and some venting out the back and some handles. And it's just a rectangular box that is 60 inches long, 60 centimeters long, 40 centimeters tall, and 13.5 centimeters deep,
Okay.
which is not fun to work with centimeters if you've ever had a client give you dimensions in those when you're not used to it.
I haven't yet. But is that so? Is it like a thing that they're going to be manipulating with their hands, or the things are with their hands, or like on the floor for their feet, or I don't
Yeah.
even know. Hands.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's all for hands, and so there are like if you picture like audio cables that you'd plug like an electric guitar into an amp.
Yeah. Okay.
Some of the modules have those,
I
or like
see.
some of them have other wires, and then there are all these little dials that are like gain and
Mm.
fancy things that change the frequency and how it manipulates. So instead of like digitally doing it on a computer, it's
Hmm.
like doing
A
it
manual version of that. Okay.
manually, and then
That's
so they have a
cool.
lot more. It has a different sound to it. That's pretty valuable to those producers.
Hmm.
And then so it's kind of you could travel around and you could bring it home and you could it's like a little box that controls your waveform. So
Yeah, that's cool. Okay.
yeah.
Sweet.
So that's kind of a quick project, or it was supposed to be quick. Yesterday I had a meltdown doing a glue up. I don't know if you've ever gotten sweaty doing a glue up before,
All
but
the time.
could not get this stupid box to stay square. So I clamped it and unclamped it like 7 times, but I got it good enough.
Yeah. Was it just like different joints than you used to, or is it just like two upright, two parallel? Like so that was like
Yep.
just fitting it all together
Just
and
a
keeping it
box.
square.
I
Yeah.
should be able to do it. I said to myself out loud, "You're a shitty woodworker." I said that out loud last night as I can't glue up a little box. It's just because it was just the outside. There was no like main face to reference square onto. So I'm
Sure.
only referencing square on these rabbits, and the rabbits are it's plywood that we're painting.
Okay.
Plywood with an MDF facing for the paint quality. So it's like
Okay.
MDO, I think it's called. I just
No.
picked it up at Menards.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I cut these rabbits, and rabbits on a plywood face are not the flattest thing in the world. Like they're flat, but chip out and little things, and it
Hmm.
just It was just fighting me, and then the plywood's deflecting, and I was like, "This looks square," and I have my square clamps, like I've got
Well, you have like a right
corner
angle
clamps.
clamp thing.
Yeah, but they don't fix the clamps onto it. Like I've got the cheap kind that are basically just the structure of it's just a big rigid square that is
Okay.
like meant for clamping to,
Sure. Okay.
if that makes any sense. Like it's just a big plastic square
Yeah.
that has structure to it, so that like you can clamp one side to the board and then clamp the other side of the next board. So I'm using these small C clamps
Hmm.
basically from Harbor Freight that are like fine. They do the job, but then I've got two hands and two clamps and one square and two boards. So like I was just getting I was getting hot. So and then I would get the two opposite corners square and then try to pull in the other two into square, and the other two were just fighting me. So
Yeah.
the boards were just deflecting a little bit, which is also part of it too because it's ply. So they're not as rigid. I'm used to working with these hardwoods that hold their straight form after I mill them. So
Well, so what would you do different next time?
burn all the pieces and call it a day. No.
Say I've got these like aluminum set of those like right angle clamps, and they've
Mhm.
got holes in it, right? So you got the right angle, they got holes through it,
Yeah.
and so you put a clamp through that, and then yeah. So I always start by getting the vertical faces, then
Mhm.
the cross beam, and it works nice. But I always have. Was it one of those times that the things where I'm always running around like with my head cut off during a glue up is when I didn't grab every single clamp and do like a
Mhm.
dry fit first and like make
Yep.
sure I know how it's going. Yeah.
So I'm pretty famous for never dry fitting.
Never dry
I
fitting.
think I've dry fit one thing in my life,
Really?
and it was on the steam vent cabinet
What's
because
the philosophy behind
I,
that? Go on with your story.
my cuts are perfect. My cuts, I never make a mistake, right? So why would I dry fit? That's a waste of my time. So no, I generally check most stuff,
Hmm.
but I have two of those corner clamps, and that's the problem. I got four
Hmm.
corners, two corner clamps.
Yep.
So that was definitely part of it. And it was just me trying to wrap it up before I had to go inside for the night. So
Sure.
impatience and arrogance to think that this is going to be quick because it's simple, you know?
Yeah.
So,
When I was first starting out and I was cutting a bunch of like Chevron and like different, like just cutting boards mostly, I kept trying to go bigger and bigger with how big the board was. And so you'd end up with, you know, this time it was 30 strips compared to last time was 20 that you'd flip over
mhm.
every other. And eventually it got to a point where I didn't know what calls were. And so I'd get it where like, and it was before I had my saw stop, so all my strips weren't perfectly parallel all the time, you know, just because like pushing it past the blade made it a little bit different. And then when you clamp everything into this pressure, they'd all just like want to
Pop
pop
out.
out. Oh
Oh,
my gosh, I can't even say how many times it just like popped out and I just like lose my shit. Just
yeah.
so mad.
You want to scream, cry, and like, I don't know what else there is. Like, just scream and cry at the same
Mhm.
time. Yeah. When I was gluing up the back of that steam vent cabinet, which we talked about a while back, that was 3/8 thick or
Mm.
so, a quarter maybe, and that stuff wanted to pop because it was like a 56-inch wide piece that I'm
Sure.
trying to glue up at that thin material, and I'm using huge parallel clamps. So
Yeah.
one little turn is so much force, and they're just popping out. So I know what you mean, but
Yeah. What do you I probably asked you this, but was it what kind of glue do you use, and was that an issue
mhm,
or was it all good? It was just a matter of getting the right
yeah,
equipment. Yeah.
my glue's fine. I've never had a problem. I use Type on 3. I
Mm.
just I don't know anything different. I just use that, and it works good. So
Yeah. If it
no
ain't broke,
problem.
don't fix it.
Yep. The only problem I've had is when I've let it freeze before.
Oh, okay.
Um, don't do that. Don't
I
ever.
imagine it's unusable after that point, or does it kind of
No, it's deceiving because it works. And
okay.
then like one time it just looks a little whiter is kind of the hint of it. It's not as creamy as it normally is. And
Hmm.
normally my shop holds temp fairly well because it's insulated. So
Hmm.
even if it gets down to 0 outside, it's like 40 in the shop or something.
Hmm.
And I don't run the heat all the time unless I'm doing painting. Um, or maybe it's not even 40 in the shop, but it's not enough for the glue to like degrade, feels like. And I have the
Yeah.
main container inside now. I used to keep it all inside or outside, but now I keep the main container. And then if I have to fill up the little glue bot thing,
Mm-hmm.
I'll just do that inside. But it looks a little whiter. And I remember I was gluing up a round for a table, like a side table. And then I popped it out of clamps the next day. I picked it up and it was all holding together. I wasn't even thinking anything of it. I just glued the thing up. And then I went to put it on I think I set it down so I could put my round mark on it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a cutout template of a
Template.
1/4 inch ply that I use. I double side tape down so I use a router, like a flush trim to get the circle.
Yeah.
And I just set it down on the table and it just popped apart. And I was like, what the hell? Like this thing is just flopping around. So I had to recut all the seams and then just re-glue with real glue again. So
And that was
learned
because
that one.
the glue froze, not because it wasn't at a high enough temperature for the glue to cure.
I believe it was because the glue was because I
Okay.
remember
Already
it
used
being
up.
like whiter.
Yeah.
And then I still put it on. And
Interesting.
then, yeah. Because when I'm out there, the shop's at like 65.
Right.
And then if I leave, it's going to be at 65 it'll be above 50 for 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So then by then the glue's probably dried enough to, let us not
Yeah, probably
damaging
fine.
the seams. But yeah, I
Wow.
posted about it on Instagram and they were like, that stuff probably froze. Because
Yeah.
I just showed because you could see the glue in the grain. And it's like it
Okay.
all went into the grain and it's like white in there. And I hadn't seen that before. So
Shoot.
yeah. Do you use Type on 3?
I use Type on 2 mostly. If I'm doing an end grain cutting board, then I'll do Type on 3.
What are the difference? I literally don't even know the differences.
The Type on 3 is meant for more waterproof products, or it's better for it's water resistance at the end of the day. And I think the open time's just a little bit less. So I think you have less time to get Type on 3 in the glue up. I don't know. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure between the two, that's the main difference. And then I think Type on 1 has the longest open time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't know what I'd want. I mean, 3's been I haven't run into problems. Like I'm gluing up 8 joints at once ever. Like,
yeah.
I don't know where I'm ever doing like huge glue ups. Like they're all big sizes. Like I'm doing big panels a lot
Mm-hmm.
where I got to just focus on things being square. But the set time hasn't really bothered me at all. So.
Sure. Yeah, I haven't really run into an issue either, but I've had to get different tools to spread glue faster because when I'm doing all the like multicolored strips and everything, like sometimes I'll do like random widths of strips and some of the strips will be, 1/16 of an inch, like really thin. And so if you're just like spreading it by hand, one strip across like 12 inches, that can be like 40 strips sometimes.
Yeah.
And so just like doing that over and over again.
Way too much time. Yeah.
Way too much time. So
you get the rollers.
Yeah, I get the rollers. And I really want to get that thing where it's just like I can't get my hand in front of the camera here. It's just like a pot with a roller on it. And then you just run the wood over the top of it as it turns.
Yeah.
So I don't know where to get one. But I know I've seen them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll try to.
The only thing I'd think with those is you'd have to be doing a lot of glue ups for that to be worth it. Because I'm sure the amount of glue you waste using that thing.
Well, I imagine you just put a container around that, or put a bag around that whole thing.
It's still going to dry out even with a bag, though, right?
Yeah, over days.
It'll still get crusty.
Yeah. But I'm planning to do a lot of gluing up at a time, so we'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
But as long as you wait and batch it all out, it wouldn't make sense for me because I'm literally doing specific joints and then cutting to size and more joints and cut. So yeah.
But yeah, I think the toughest I've had with that was, calls. I needed to make calls and I did the desk that I did. If you've seen it on my Instagram, it's one of the
Yep.
pinned ones. That was like one giant chevron glue up, that main thing. So it's like 64 inches long with the
Mm-hmm.
strips about an inch wide. And so I used steel strut to as the
Yeah.
call. So I just glued everything down. But I remember that just like I'd get like 20 strips and it would already be starting to harden up
Mm.
before I got glue on the rest of them to try to clamp them all together. And I
Mm-hmm.
just remember sweating and panicking that whole time. And so eventually I just like would clamp what I had there. I'd do the next 10 strips, take those clamps off, put them in new clamps, and like just keep working down the line.
Mm-hmm.
That was the closest I've ever been to not beating
Losing it.
the open time.
Yeah.
Yeah, losing it. Exactly right.
Yeah. I I've had a lot of ones where I'm just like, because I don't dry fit very often, like I'm like,
It's
oh,
a
this back panel will slide right in. Doesn't want to slide right in. And then it's like, okay, I got to make a tiny cut off this thing. While my other stuff's in glue, I need to like take like a 30-second off this,
yep.
16th off this. So I'm running to the table saw doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I've had a couple where I'm mid glue up in a frenzy and Cal walks in to just say hey or something. And I'm like swearing my mind off, like just like losing my mind at this little piece of wood on the table. And she's
Mm-hmm.
like, I'll be back later. Like, yeah, have fun. Like it
Good
just
luck.
leaves me alone. So, oh my gosh, yeah, I think glue ups
Yeah.
can be too much, but
Have you ever? Well, so you don't do dry fits, but I was gonna say that was a habit I had to like force because I
mhm,
hated being in the position where it's like, okay, I glued this thing up. It didn't go exactly the way I wanted to. I got to take it apart, wipe all the glue off because I don't know how long it's going to take to correct this other thing that I missed.
right,
But I have found also that when I do dry fits and everything looks like it's going to fit together, like I'll have an assembly fully clamped up and it seems like everything's going to be fine. And then as soon as I add glue, it moves things around a little bit.
hmm,
And so I think that I'll have like a tight fit with like maybe a panel and it's not really loose. It's the
yeah,
right amount of tension. But as soon as I add glue and get it all clamped up, it's different than it was. And so that just frustrates the hell out of me. And I haven't quite figured out what is happening during that. It's hard to believe that glue makes that much of a difference, or is it just the pressure when you've got glue in the clamps? Are you clamping it down tighter? Or
that might be it too. Are these faces that are like parallel faces with nothing, no
it's
other datums? Like, would the salt trick help you? Is kind of where I was gonna go.
so this is less on like just panel work. It's more on
Yeah.
like a structure when I'm
Oh
doing
yeah.
right angles and things and fitting inside of dados and
Hmm.
yeah, just the tolerance stack up, I think, is what I'm actually dealing with at the end of the day. But
Yeah.
I'm always surprised that when it comes to glue time, it just goes a little bit different than you had planned
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Yeah. What I've done on a couple of these things, so I've been like on the Manhattan cabinet, there's no face frame. So you can
Mm.
see my rabbits,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't mind because I like the look of that. Like I can see how the wood fits together. And I want it to look more like lightweight and just structure and not
Mm.
have like a big border of the face frame.
Yeah.
And then the outside looks a little cleaner too, because then it's just straight wood and you don't have the side grain next to the face grain. But since I can see those rabbits and the dados that are actually clearly visible,
Mm-hmm.
I got to really worry about that edge and any chip out or any glue there. So what I've done to help the glue squeeze out too, because if you get glue squeeze out there, it can be really hard to sand off without like rounding a lot or like
Mm.
changing that profile. So I've taken some sandpaper and if I have the whole top edge, I'll sand the middle 80% and I'll kind of make like almost a chamfer with sandpaper
Okay.
of just like slight, just to
Mm-hmm.
give like some glue a corner to go into.
Yep, that's a good idea.
But not a lot. Like I try to do it light because I
Mm-hmm.
think having a nice square also is helping my glue up too. Because if it has less slop to it, uh, so I don't know
Yeah.
if that does anything to what your application is, but
that probably is what is the missing link. It's probably that I haven't accounted for the glue width in some of those cases, because I usually am trying to like do tight, perfect fits, and unless it's like a place where I'm like, I know I can make a loose fit here and it's not going to disturb the future function of whatever this part is.
yeah,
Normally it's a tight fit. So it's probably that a little chamfer or like a V groove in the end of a tenon that goes into a
yeah,
mortise or something like that would work
yeah,
too. But I just haven't, I've never really, I think I'm paying minute attention to tiny details, and then, not considering that. So I'll think about that. That's going to change things a lot. Game changer.
yeah. I'm just thinking about how much I even do it too. Like if I should do it more, because I've still run into those kinds of issues you're talking about. And it's like I could probably take off a little bit more. I just worry like if I take too much, then I'm going to lose the part that kind of with those rabbits, they kind of lock themselves into place, and you don't have to worry as much about alignment. You just you clamp, and they pull square.
Right.
So that's the best part of those things, rather than trying to like it's a puzzle piece versus trying to fit two squares together. So that's definitely part of it. And then like if I don't have a super tight fit, because I really don't like hammering. Like I want the dado to like slip in kind of slick. Like as soon as you start, like I've gotten ambitious and I'm like, I start tapping it with a mallet to pop it into a rabbit, like pop this panel into a rabbit. And then now I'm making myself so much at risk of like chip out on the panel where I'm trying to jam it into that rabbit. But then also if you get really upset, that mallet, you might be denting the other side. And I've dented some other sides of panels and then had to like, I've gotten stuff wet to try to like bring it back, which is actually kind of worked. Yeah. But only did that once when it was like, this is not okay. Versus most of the time, if I'm denting it, usually that gets hidden in the other side, because there's usually a dado on the other side too, or a rabbit that it's going to slide into. So it's okay technically, but I just don't like doing that. And then that's making that wood get a little thicker because you just dented it. So it's expanding. And then now it's harder to get it into the other dado. So it's just a compounding thing. But if it is a little loose, I'll try to glue stuff up upside down from the viewing spot so that gravity's helping me keep the tighter edge to the visible area.
Sure.
So if there is like the slightest, not gap, but like, when like it's not a gap, but it's like a seam almost, not, it's so slight, but like I'd rather it be on the underside so that it's a little harder to see.
Yeah, that's a good thought too.
Doesn't always work for positioning, but I just try to do it upside down a lot. Like I glue stuff up upside down all the time. So
interesting. Yeah.
I should start doing dry fits.
You should. Yeah, it helps. It helps a lot.
I'm always like kind of dry fitting. Like I'm all like I like slide things together, but I don't get it all. Like some people get everything with every clamp on there exactly how they want it. And I haven't had a complex enough glue up where I needed to do that yet.
Sure. Yeah.
Like I make a lot of square stuff right now.
Yeah.
So it works out.
It'll eventually happen where you'll find the time where you say, okay, I have to change the way I'm doing it, and I'm never going to go back.
I've only had to wipe glue off once.
Oh, really?
Like get the water out only once. And I can't even remember what that glue up was, but it was a bad moment. I remember I was trying to get this glue off, and it was like DEFCON 5 or whatever the bad one is. And I ran out and I took a hose, and I was like spraying it down and wiping it off. I was trying to get that stuff off as soon as possible because it was a pretty bad, like glue everywhere. Yeah. So
it's never pretty when you got to start over after you already started with glue.
Do you use any CA glue like blocks to, like, do you ever do the tape trick where people tape on the piece and then CA glue some blocks on to give you more of a different angle to clamp on? On miters or on any of that?
I have tried that a few times and I haven't had a ton of success with that. And it
have
could
they popped
be
off?
Yeah, and I remember that I think the time that I did it, I had too tight of a fit where I couldn't get enough surface area from the blue tape to blue tape and the
Ah,
CA glue in between, where it just wanted to keep popping off. It wasn't tight enough. It was actually the miter fold of the legs on this last table that I
mm,
tried to do that. And so I kept all the offcuts when I cut that miter off and tried to glue that on. And I used, because I don't have a domino or anything.
neither do I.
I have a biscuit joiner, which gets the job done most of the time. Um, and so I had biscuits at a 45-degree angle, and then tried to tape those on there, and I couldn't clamp it tight enough and get that actual miter seam to come together.
Hmm.
So I remember what I ended up having to do. I had the right angle clamp in the back of it, and I had to put shims in between to just kind of spread it a little bit.
Mm, mm.
And then I used a box, like that strap, for like gluing up boxes.
Yep.
I tied that around it and just cranked it down, and that ended up working.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was really disappointed.
Stressful.
It would have been a lot easier with that glue trick.
Yeah, I tried. I tried to. So on the steam vent cabinet where it comes across the top,
Mm-hmm.
those those were done with a rabbet on each part. So the main carcass, the main straight part of the carcass on each side had a rabbet, and
Mm-hmm.
then the steam vent piece that curves around the whole top also had a rabbet cut into it.
Mm-hmm.
And the rabbet on the steam vent was on the inside of the cabinet to try to prevent any expansion outward
Sure. Yep.
versus having it on the outside. So then it would be free to just, as long as if the glue broke loose, it could pop or, expand
Mm-hmm.
back into a flat shape. So for anybody not watching the video, I'm doing a lot of hand gestures right now, but it helps me talk. Anyway, the piece popped into the rabbets pretty well. If I just, because that steam vent piece would sit about a eighth inch further than it was supposed to, because there was a little bit, it would want to return to shape just slightly. The
Mm-hmm.
steam venting process went pretty well though, so it held shape pretty well. But I just had to pop it in just slightly, so
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of nice because then it gave me that press fit out in order to almost, it was like self clamping in
Right.
a way.
Yep.
But what I wanted was to secure that piece down as hard as I could to the main part of the carcass, but there's nothing to clamp to on top.
Mm.
This was probably my biggest panic moment of a glue up ever, to bring the
Okay.
whole thing full circle here. So I clamped on like calls, or not calls, but blocks with the CA glue along the both inside and outside
Mm.
of the cabinet. Now the top is steam vent, but there's a straight section on it, so I
Okay.
could still have enough surface area to still reference a square and then be able to pull them into square. But by pulling 90 degrees to the CA glue, they just kept popping off.
Yeah.
And I knew they were likely not going to work, but like I figured I could go pretty light and just snug them down, because this thing was already sitting really well with the pressure it had. I just wanted to secure them all the way down a little lower.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up not working how I wanted it to. So I went and got the mold that I used to bend the steam slats, and I put
Yep.
it on top of the whole cabinet. And then I had to do now I'm past the length of all my clamps,
Okay.
because it worked to reach, I have clamps that could go from the top of the center of the steam vent circle to the base of the cabinet, or to one of the mid shelves, because the mid shelves are structural too, because they have the rabbets. So I could clamp to that, but I couldn't clamp to the base from the outside corners, because they
Yeah.
were just too tall with the height of the mold. So then I'm doing double clamps, and then I'm trying to clamp on one corner, and then they're falling off the other corner, and then because it was just, that was one of them. I think that Cal walked in. I think that was the one where she's like, "I'll see you later," but um, it ended up working, because then I'm just pulling down with the whole mold, and that thing's
Yeah.
holding that steam vent shaped square right on that carcass. So it worked out, but just due to the timing and stuff. And I don't know if I didn't clamp it hard enough. I was trying not to overdo it too.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I did have I had like a 16th inch seam, and that's why I came back and added those brass inlays on that
Oh, okay.
transition, because
Yeah,
I couldn't close it quite enough.
sure.
And that could have also been the dados. There were the rabbits cut on the ends of the two, because it was really hard to cut that square on that steam bench shape,
Right.
because I
Yeah.
had to have a jig that references the curve, and then still have my router try to be squared to the future carcass it was going to mate to. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope that all made sense. But
It does. It would be tricky to make that be a tight fit, regardless
mhm.
of. Yeah, I can't even think of a. I think the brass thing was really smart, and I think it looked sharp that way.
I like it better with them, so it
Yeah.
worked out.
Yeah. I can't picture how you'd even make sure that that would join together super well.
I should have done straps,
Straps.
right? Because then I could have cranked them down, and
Yeah.
as long as the joints were the right shape, they would have come together.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's true too that the joints could have been slightly off, and then that's part of what's holding me up.
Well, yeah, and if it's like kind of, you said pushing out,
Mm-hmm.
it might not be perfectly like straight down anymore. So then
Exactly.
that's probably the part of the gap that you're seeing.
Yeah, that's part of it too. But it did look flat. Like as soon as I pop it into place, as long as it looks like the little gap looked square, and I'm like, what the
Oh,
heck?
okay.
Like, get down there. But
Hmm.
you don't know what's going on, like on the inside of the joint almost. Like you can see the front face, but like maybe
Yeah.
my router jumped, or maybe,
Yeah.
so, but it's like when the glue's applied, you're clamping. So, but it turned out really well, so I can't be too mad. But that one was probably the scariest.
Yeah. Learning experience every time.
And I kind of dry fit that one, but not to the full clamping extent, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. It helps. It helps. And then you know exactly how many you need and where they are. And yeah, it's just it's a good rule of thumb to follow every time.
Yeah.
Cool.
Any other thoughts on gluing?
I think that's enough about
That's
glue.
a lot about glue. Sorry to ramble.
No, we're both rambling. Yeah. What else you working on this week?
Nothing. I got to get that box done, and I'm
Yep.
picking away at the tap handles. So
Sure. How are those handles going? Still well?
haven't
Good.
really been doing many of them. I've been
Sure.
painting. So
Painting.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, we got electricity in the new shop, so I was
Nice.
a little behind, and then kind of jumped up ahead. So we're placing machinery this week and starting to get the lay of the land and finalize all that, so then we can finish dust collector, all the pipes, and that good stuff. Figure out how we're going to hang them from the ceiling, and then yeah, this week I've just been working on more design, and so it's been interesting. So I've been learning a lot about my own creative process this week.
Okay.
That's like it's I'm trying to just give myself freedom to do things in ways that I haven't done in the past, just to see like what feels good or right, or is there a way that I can um, get in this like zone where I'm just like really excited to like keep trying new things. And like I have noticed that it's whenever I picture like okay, this is what it's going to look like, and I've got this solid rigid idea in my mind, where all my momentum just slows way down. I don't know what that's about. I still want to explore that. But it's funny. I've just been like being really non-disciplined in terms of how I'm spending my time throughout the day. Where in the past I was like really like, okay, I'm putting this 4-hour block aside and I'm going to work on this task X, right? And just like see how that goes. Well, I've been messing around just like, all right, I want to work on this for an hour, and I work on it until, I get a little like bored or sleepy of this idea. And I'll just like get up and go walk somewhere and like read a little bit of a book, and then like come back to it and like see it like giving myself a different kind of break that I'm not used to, and just like trying that out. And it's been really interesting. It's been going super well. And so my creative process is just like not something I expected would just be like something other than like sitting down and like thinking about an idea, trying to create that in virtual reality and then come up with a way to make that in physical reality. It's more just like all over the place. And I've been like trying to do it from like a feelings standpoint. And so this is the first time in my designs that I've been like really, really thinking about what is just the vibe that this thing is going to be. Right. And so,
Cool.
yeah, so that I've been really like thinking about, if I'm going to put a piece of furniture in this room, what do I want to experience when I'm in this room? Like if it's the kitchen, I want to experience, ease of grabbing things, right? And so like if I'm cooking, like everything's there in front of me, I see what I've got, kind of like my shop. That's how I want my shop to be too. I just see the tools that I need to do the task that I need. When I'm in my living room, I just want it to be peaceful and calm and like be, in a really relaxed state. So I've been kind of designing around that and kind of like getting more towards like flowy and curves and a lot of stuff that I have not dug deep into yet. And so, but it's getting exciting. So I'm kind of rambling and ranting now too, but
no, that's perfect.
Better at answering questions than just vomiting information.
No, that was cool. So are you taking it through this is the stuff I love, because like I think you're speaking my language on how I've kind of the way I try to think about things. So like I think of a mood first. Like it's like what is like the vibe, you said vibe, like of the piece, but then like I think of like colors and like a voice. This is gonna get weird. So like I think like if the piece could actually like talk, how would it sound? How fast does it talk? Does it talk slow, deep voice, high pitched voice? What kind of music is playing when you're looking at it or using it? All that kind of stuff. So like that's why like you'll see like lo-fi music or jazz music with the two cabinets I've done, because like that's like the vibe I've been like feeling and that I'm into, and I'm not like, they're both trying to be somewhat calm but also like standing out in a way.
Sure.
And that's kind of like the walnut choices, and that's like the subtleties of design. Not a ton of stuff going on. It's kind of because of those decisions there. And then it's I'm trying to I had another piece there. So it's like the voice, the music, and then who's using it too, obviously. And so you're talking like you want the peaceful, so it's the shape directly correlates to that peacefulness. So like curves, and so like just going down like a word tree. So starting with this piece is for X, and then you're gonna, like, I try to march down, and then what are the components of each word above it, and then that can give you almost elements to pull in. So peaceful has round, has it might be simple but with like slight complexities that are intriguing, right? So is it an intriguing piece, or is it bold? Is it like right smacks you in the face with the detail? That might not, depending on the piece. So and then I do a lot of I try to think about the empty space more than I think about the wood a lot of times, because the empty space is what we fill and what we actually use. And I think people, like, for the way I see furniture, like it's almost in the way in a way, but it provides so much function. So like the whole reason I have whatever piece is for the empty space that it holds.
Sure.
So then I focus as much as I can on the empty space versus the surface, if that makes any sense at all.
It makes a ton of sense.
I find so much. I don't know if it was like third grade art or whatever, but they taught us about like empty space, and I just locked in on that, and I remember that. And like all the music I like has this like a lot of empty space in it. A lot of like beats will drop out and then come back in, and it'll be really open. And there's so much like space to be filled in a way. So
that's cool.
I don't know if you've thought like that, but that's what I try to focus on.
Yeah, I can't say I've ever focused on it, but it's definitely something that I think about when designing something, because it's always, I mean, I'm always starting from just function, just pure function. I hope that my pieces are something where it makes something that you want to do more of to like improve your well-being, and it makes that easier, right?
Yeah,
And
more
so that
accessible. Yeah.
right, and so that is usually the starting point, but now it's I'm kind of shifting over, like, let's make the first priority the vibe and then that. But yeah, because you're looking at function, if it's something that this is to display my whatever, like, you need to know what that thing is and what the size of that is, and make sure that
Mm-hmm.
if you're building something to display something, you don't want your piece to take the show away from the thing that's being displayed,
Right.
which I struggle with because I like to make the piece really bold.
Sure.
Um, but at the same time, it's like trying to understand and balance that, and making sure that the user's intent is still there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know where I was going somewhere with that, and I just lost it right here at the end. But yeah, negative space. It's an interesting thing. It's like it's almost double of what your project is, right?
Yeah.
Because like yeah,
You're managing the whole envelope that it takes up. And
mm-hmm,
then it helps you think about like shadow lines and things. Like
mm-hmm,
I was making all these side tables and they have 3 legs, but a lot of these 3-leg side tables, depending on the angle you stand, they look wonky. I don't know if
mm,
you've noticed that before, the
yeah,
3-leg
yep.
tables, like
It
they look
doesn't
like
look
they're
like
off
they should be
center.
standing because they
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that was like a pretty cool, like I hadn't noticed that at first. And then making them, it's like, okay, that space down below. And then like I personally think of like functional space versus not functional. Like the space under my desk means something because my legs need to occupy it. But on the sides, I don't have an overhang where I can do anything functional with that. So that's like I try to make that an element of interest aesthetically,
Mm,
less than function. So like where it's not used space, that can be a highlight versus if I'm covering it up, it doesn't have to be as much of a highlight. So I think it helps with balance of like choosing where to put your features.
mm-hmm.
And then I think a lot about, I don't know, what do you think on like ratios? Like, do you do any, like for a while there, I was kicking with the golden ratio stuff or like the 1/3, 2/3 stuff. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of cool stuff out there with like ratios as well.
So yeah, like there's a few artists I follow who do a lot of like Fibonacci sequence stuff, which is
Hmm.
super cool. But I can't say that I personally like. I'm not really. I do it visually in CAD, right? Like
Hmm.
I know what the design is going to be. Like I know this piece is here, this piece is here, this piece is here, this piece is here, and then I just kind of stretch it until it looks right.
Sure.
And so I'm not really taking the length of this and dividing it by that and seeing if the ratio is there. But I think that's something that's like super important. And I think for me, that's just one of the things that just naturally comes through without me having to think about it, is the
Cool.
spacing and the ratio. But it is something that like really, really matters. Like it makes a huge
Hmm.
difference. Like I've got here's one of my first projects.
Is it the clock? Show me the clock.
No,
Ah,
more recent than that.
okay.
This was a little like thing I built for my wife,
Oh,
just
cool. Drawers for the
a
desk.
monitor stand.
Oh, yeah.
But I didn't really do ratios super well.
Sure.
Um, and so
Three
yeah,
quarter, three
it makes
quarter
a big
wood.
difference. Like this is such a simple thing, but if I had made those legs just a little bit shorter, I think it would have been a lot nicer looking,
Sure.
a lot more sleek.
Yeah, that's really hard. And I've definitely made a ton of awkward looking stuff. Like and then you look at it when it's done and it's like, like I've thought about ratios and tried to use them and then I built it and then it doesn't quite hit as much as it like you think it's supposed to deliver. And
Mm-hmm.
then other things have worked out a lot better. Um, so that's like a weakness where I need a like I've been trying to do more cardboard
Oh
mock-up
yeah,
almost.
yeah.
Like I just with the Manhattan cabinet, like I cut it out and I just taped it to the wall and I was just looking at it. Like, is that the right size? And it's short. Like, it's not a full height unit,
Mm-hmm.
which is I think people's biggest complaint with it, actually, which is interesting because I remember thinking that. But it's like the whole point is I wanted you to be able to put like stuff on it, and it's not like a huge thing and like taking up all the space and
Yeah.
all that. But I think that was like I need to do more of those cardboard things just to feel it, just
Yeah.
to see it in the room, and understand how that works. So
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'm really bad. Just like you said, you never do dry fits. I
mhm.
never do prototypes, and
Yeah.
that's my toxic woodworking trait.
Well, it
That's
feels like CAD satisfies it. It really does.
yeah.
But then you don't see it next to a plant, like a couch, or next to a. I don't know why I started saying plant first, but that's what I thought of.
Plant is
Like
one unit
using
of
it.
size.
Yeah, one singular plant. Yeah, it's 3 plants tall. Yeah, but the ratios are kind of fun to play with, but I feel like it's a pit that I've fallen into where it's like, ooh, that'll make it work.
Hmm.
Because I'm just trying to avoid awkward looking stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does honestly just take practice too. And
Yeah.
then I'm curious what you think about wood thicknesses because I've grown to hate working with 3/4 because
Okay.
everything is 3/4 now, and I keep designing with 3/4 because I can buy 4/4 wood that's rough and then get it down to 3/4 and it's smooth, and then I can use it.
Sure.
So trying to incorporate more thicknesses like trying to intentionally go to 1/2 inch when I can,
Mhm.
or intentionally keep it thicker when I
Yeah.
can. So
Yeah. I guess I'm thinking more. So thickness, I do think about. You can't avoid thinking about it really, but I think mostly I think about weight, and so
yeah,
that has a lot to do with ratios too. But then also like tapers or like I like things that taper because then it just adds another dimension and kind of like you were talking about the other day how you wanted to that table giveaway that you're going
hmm
to do and you kind of want to make it feel like it was like kind of floating up above
yep,
the stretchers. Like I think those types of things take away blockiness, and so like
hmm
I'm usually trying to avoid blockiness, and I'm trying to make it look more elegant or like brittle or fragile without actually being brittle or fragile.
sure,
So I don't really think about the thickness in terms of um, yeah, just as a thickness. I'm more just like how does this fit into how can I design things where your eyes get drawn to certain places, and like if you're gonna keep staring at it longer, where are the next places that your eyes are gonna go? And I
mm,
just put all the details into some of those areas to kind of like I don't know, it kind of like makes a narrative, like a little bit of
yeah,
like how you're looking at the piece. And so yeah, thickness is involved in there. I just don't know how to answer your question differently.
hmm
Um, I think it's fun when you have a bunch of different thicknesses, so it confuses the eye, but then there has to be some level of uniformity to the whole
right,
piece, whether
right,
that's the size of things or the pattern of things or whatever, but you can't just be too all over the place. So
hmm
yeah, I really like mixing up uniformity and chaos and
hmm
just like playing with those dials.
yeah, super cool. Yeah, I think I've got a design locked in my brain for that table, but
Mhm.
that's part of the problem too is when you see it so hard, like so vividly
Mhm.
that you can't get out of that and you
Mhm.
can't so then you almost have to start from scratch to get away.
Yep.
Um and I when I do get locked in so quickly, it's I feel like I've been influenced by a lot of the things I've seen online. I'm
Mhm.
like, is this original enough? But then I'm like, at the end of the day, I've never built a dining table. It's okay if it's not the most original dining table you've ever seen in your life because
Yeah.
I need to make a dining table, right? Like it there's a balance here too where I need to get that experience and I need to pick a couple things I want to work on and learn and
Mhm.
just do those,
Yep.
and build it. And then that's going to teach me something and I'm going to think of new ideas for the next one anyway. So I'm trying to just put that aside and just keep rolling.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, I've just been focusing on thicknesses because I've been the 3/4 guy. Like I'm so sick of using just plain 3/4 on everything because it doesn't look right. Like it just gets bland or not. There's almost like a weight to like a 1 inch or an inch and a quarter that just feels better.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like you said, like you're worried about weight with it. When you choose the thicknesses, I was going to add on like with the cabinets that I've been doing, I've been always worried about tipping if I've got drawers. So I'm
Yeah.
always thinking about like the tipping load and where my weight is. And I try to structure it so the bottom of the cabinet, like the bottom of the Manhattan cabinet, that's an inch. And then
Mm-hmm.
the rest is a lot of 3/4. And it just gives it a little more mass to the back. And then the back shelf or the back panel, this is hard to explain. It's hidden in the back. It's just like a brace for the mirror. That's
Okay.
also a little thicker just to put more weight in that very back to offset any tipping for the drawer side.
Yeah.
So just little stuff like that. And then I feel like it almost like sets it in the room too. It gives like weight to the base where if everything's super tapered down, things look like they could blow over in a
Mm-hmm.
breeze. So I don't know. There's so many things you just have to do with your eye too. And there's not a lot of reason to it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just what's pleasing and what isn't, and kind of forming that, like, there's for me, it feels like a battle of influence, like what's already out there, and then what's something that I know that I haven't seen that I want to bring into the world, right? But then trying not to take it too far because then it's too different, and then people don't like that as much. Like that, like psychologically, it just, if it's too different, we
Mm-hmm.
just aren't quite ready. And so, um, I think it's fun to kind of push that boundary as far as you can, but at the same time, um, like I've been trying to get better at iterating on my own ideas before I say, okay, this is the one I'm going to build. Because
Sure.
and that's like what you said, get locked in on that first one.
Yeah.
That sparked something in me. I was like, yeah, I've been trying to, like, all right, I think that looks really good, but just for the heck of it, I'm going to put that aside now. I'm going to start all over with that same concept and try
Mm-hmm.
to get to a slightly different place, and then kind of compare what changed and why, really like distill what's different between it, and then push that limit too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm thinking of a lot of things when I'm trying to come up with designs, but yeah, mostly it's the function and like, how does this thing increase your quality of life?
Right. You
Yeah.
wanna be drawn to it and to use it, but also to look at it and just enjoy it.
Mhm.
When you'd said the going too complex so that it's too shocking or something that
Too
the
different.
too be
Yeah.
different and people might not accept it because it just looks so different, so off, so weird.
Mhm.
It made me think of a quote, and I can't recall which book, which audiobook of the thousands I'm trying to cram into my brain every day. Um, but it was the wrong idea or the right idea too early is the wrong idea, or like it's
Mhm.
something like that. Like the right idea presented too early
Sure.
is wrong. Like
Yeah.
it's not going to work. So like, and that there's so many examples of that with like technology too, where we all think, oh, this is gonna be the future, and then it flops. I don't know, like Google
Mhm.
Glasses or something. Like we're all like, oh, that'll work, and then it was too soon, and it didn't work, right? So
Yep.
um, that was kind of interesting.
Timing's a
Uh,
lot of it.
yeah.
So something that goes deeper into that topic, it's a Netflix series called Abstract.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of that one, but that
I have
one's super
not.
cool. So, um, I guess I'll tell you what it is. So it's just like it's all about art, but it's all about like art in today's like industrial society. And so it kind of talks each episode is about a person who's an expert in like their different fields. So like, one, my favorite episode was this woman who, I'm ashamed I can't think of her name right now, but she is like a scientist slash architect slash doctor. And so like she studies organic creatures, like she studies bees a lot right now and how they make um, there are different structures in the world, and like how can we make from science like ways to replicate.
What can we learn from the bees?
Yeah, what can we learn from nature in like
Yeah.
as many different ways as possible? And then there's like one episode's all about like fonts and how we use font and everything. And so
That'd be
they go
cool.
like they go deep into like all these different places that you wouldn't expect. And then they talk about that concept a lot of like you can't be too different. Like you can't be too far ahead of your time and be successful during your lifetime, in quotes, end quotes, because like you can still be successful, but not
to the goal that you're literally trying to perceive at the moment. You'll be a pariah or whatever because you're way off the deep end or whatever.
right. And I'm not saying this because like I'm not saying that I think that I'm that person who's like too far out there, but it's just fun to like be aware of that and like have that push yourself, but then also try to like push an audience and because like at the end of the day, we're still trying to market our stuff to get people to like it and want ours over somebody else's. So there's still that element to it where it has to be accepted. It's kind of like, how much do you charge for your work? Well, at the end of the day, you can charge as much as somebody's willing to pay for it. There's not like the right answer or like
$29.99.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I mean it's the border between a product and a piece of art that we're like always towing the line on. And it's how custom is it and what's the value of that custom for you too.
Yep.
So, but like your brain wants to go, like you said, like you don't want to be locked in. So then you're like, I'm going to set that aside and then go try this. But then you might get locked in on that. Okay, I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to go do something else. And then you kind of get in this loop where you're not ever making any real design decisions. So that's kind of how a couple weeks ago we were talking about quoting. Right, this might have been months ago, but I remember saying what I do when I quote something for somebody, like a piece I actually want to build, is I just make exactly what I would want for me and what I would be most excited to build. And then that's like the goal. I want them to accept that quote because I provide like 2 to 3 renders depending on timing and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I go way far like into weird stuff. Like, and I try to like, what would be whack with like this design? Like how could like, what's a weird shape or a weird, like, it doesn't like, it might look like it'll fall over or maybe it, I don't know. Like I try to get weird with it. And then like, then I take an element from the weird part and I try to rein it back. And while designing it, you spend plenty of time making full renders and CAD drawings because like you got to dimension everything and it takes time. So it's a couple hours of thinking about this weird concept that you just went with based on maybe something small that they said. So I try to take little stuff that they said and just go whack with it. And then I try to pull one concept and pull it back to the original, but like meet it halfway and still incorporate something slight into it to like, it's almost like an Easter egg or like a hint to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of fun too, to like, if you're stuck on the idea, maybe that's your base and then go get weird over here and then pull something that's exciting about that part and then incorporate it and then lock in and just make the middle one.
Yeah, sure.
So
that's a good way to do it.
If you find yourself keep finding yourself renewing ideas and just restarting, just lock in the one that had you most excited and then make it a little weird.
Yeah. And I think it's funny because you say all that and I'm wondering what my issue historically is. And I think I get to a point where I'm excited about something. I want to build it. So I'm stuck on that thing. And I oftentimes get stuck and it's like, I have to get this idea into the physical world before I can get to the next idea. Right.
Oh.
And so I think my problem is actually like the reverse. Like if I could get lost forever in reiterating because I think I'll always come up with like more new things. And I eventually just have to stop and say, all right, this is the one we're building. But it is fun because I'm doing that now. It's like I can look at 4 different things that with the same design intention here, 4 different iterations. It is a lot easier for me to be like, ooh, that's the one I'm excited about. No more new stuff. Let's just zone in and go.
Yeah. As long as you don't make yourself stop and then feel like you might have had gold on the next round the whole time, because then you'll get disinterested faster if you think
That's
that maybe you
true.
didn't get all the way there. So, but I would just, you can't go forever, right? So you gotta stop at some point. But it's like, that's why I try to go like simple and then
Yeah.
crazy, and then let's pull it to the middle somewhere where that feels comfortable enough, where it's still challenging me, but I can still get excited on it. And
Yeah.
and
And you're leaving it quite a bit up to the customer with that
mhm.
that mindset too. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's cool.
And like all my renders I do, I try to get lots of angles and do all that, and I send them to my phone, and then I can like look at them throughout the day,
Hmm.
just when I think about them. And even if it's a weird, like, even if it's a concept that I'm not in love with and I like this other design better, I still will like check it out and
Mm-hmm.
see like what I feel like when I look at it at different times of the day, or when I'm feeling tired. Is the simple idea a lot cooler because it's more achievable? Or if I'm feeling really amped up, is the simple idea super boring? That kind of stuff too.
Sure.
But I just try not to come up with too many ideas, because then you have paralysis by option analysis, like so many options and all
Yeah.
that. And it's just like what feels good, and then just get rolling.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I liked. I don't know. It was a few episodes ago where we were kind of challenging each other to do more of the other person's kind of work.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that a lot, and like just in the ways of I like complicated designs and I like
Hmm.
doing cool stuff, but at the end of the day, like if I can get a complicated design but then refine it back to simple somehow, like if I
Hmm.
start at the really complicated and kind of like what you're saying, drawing it back towards center, in different ways, even like there's not just one way to do that. It adds that like the problem that I was describing, it helps fix that problem of it's not too different, but
Hmm.
also simple is good and pleasing to the eye
Sure.
at the end of the day too. So I have been thinking a lot about what you said.
Hmm. And not to give you more ideas, but
More ideas. Yeah.
we talked about like Instagram woodworkers that we like.
Hmm.
And one thing that you could always do too is start with a simple form, and then pick one of the Instagram people that you find really cool, and just pick an element of whatever that is. Like if it's the wall art, or
Hmm.
if it's the we've talked about multiple, but pick one of the things and then simplify what they're doing. Because if you're trying to learn what they're doing, you got to start slow too. Like you can't just
Hmm.
jump to their full potential, because they've been working on it for however many years. But and then
Hmm.
just throw that somewhere in your design, and then it's kind of an ode to them in a way. Like it's kind of a inspired by, or
Yeah.
like so then you're still making it yours, but then you're learning that skill, and you kind of get best of both worlds, where you're simple but you have some complexity somewhere. I
Hmm.
don't know, that might help.
Yeah. There's a lot of ways. That is.
Hmm.
Yeah. Gotta almost. Yeah, I've got so I'm up to 10 pieces of furniture that I'm going to build for my living room.
That would take me all year, dude.
I'm hoping
That's
to be done.
intimidating.
I'm hoping to be done by March, but we'll see.
I only have 10 hours a week, so
Yeah, that's a lot different.
that's different.
I think I'm overly ambitious, but yeah, I'll probably do an exercise in just testing out these different starting points, right? And like
Hmm.
for each piece of furniture, do it a different way. And
Yeah.
it's like my own science experiment of like what's with the results that I want, what's the best process.
Hmm.
So I almost have more fun thinking about it that way than just like designing a piece of furniture, which is hilarious to me. But
Yeah, right now you're designing
I'm
your
designing,
process.
yeah, yeah,
You're designing your way that your business designs furniture. So
yeah.
like you're taking like that's cool. That's
It is fun. It's
yeah.
weird to think about, but yeah, it's fun.
Oh, that Mountain Dew and rum, man. I'm telling
Mm.
you. Hits the spot.
Caffeine this late would destroy me.
Eh. I'll be able to I could literally go to sleep right after this.
Oh yeah,
Caffeine doesn't, I don't know.
it is
I
what
have
it
to.
is.
I have too much of it usually. Not ridiculous. Like I'm not pounding
Built
energy
up
drinks
this
all day, but
caffeine tolerance with years of Mountain Dew. I get it.
exactly. Full circle on this episode. Here we go. Any other design thoughts? You a chamfer
Um,
guy or a roundover guy? That's the final
ooh,
question I have.
depends. I really like chamfers. I think I like chamfers more,
I agree.
but every once in a while, a roundover is exactly what the thing needed. So
Sometimes some real thick roundovers are buttery. They're good.
yeah,
Yep.
definitely more of a chamfer guy though.
No, I can tell. That's fine.
How do you like profile routing? Like, do you like, you don't like that kind of stuff?
Not me.
Does that just take it out of, well, you did fluting, but that's different.
That's a texture to me. Like when you're into patterns and
Mm-hmm.
the labor that goes into combining all those wood species,
Mm-hmm.
I go toward texture. So
Okay.
I want to like add a texture either with like a CNC or by hand or something. Like I go to like one material with shadow lines of texture, and you
Sure.
go more flat but with tons of color and grain patterns and all
Yep.
that stuff. So
Yep.
it's just a difference with the depth of the surface.
Yeah. I haven't really touched texture at all. But it's been something I've wanted to try eventually.
Yeah.
It's probably not anytime soon. But
I'm
yeah, that's
thinking
cool.
about texturing the whole underside of the dining table I'm looking at as
Mm.
a subtle thing that if you look, it keeps going kind of thing,
Okay.
So kind of like I don't know what they call it, but I've seen a lot of different textures where they take almost cove cuts, like repeated cove cuts in a randomized pattern, like
Or just like little scoops.
yeah. You could
Yeah.
do it with like an angle grinder with like an arbor plane or something, or
Scallops.
scallops.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about maybe doing that to the bottom of the table
Okay. That'd
and
be
maybe leave like the border like a 2 inches around the whole bottom that it's smooth in case your hand touches it. But
sure.
yeah,
That could be really cool. Yeah.
just as like a subtle extra, because I could do that fairly quickly with a
Yeah.
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 So
And that, like, on the underside, if it doesn't go perfect,
just
like,
plain it.
or just like it's still there, and like
Yeah,
it still would be an interesting feature that like isn't in main sight all the time. It's just
and
it's a
it's a
really good,
giveaway,
and it's a giveaway.
so I can do
There's
whatever
that
I
too.
want. Yeah.
That's cool. I like that idea a lot.
hmm
Cool.
Now I'm locking it in. Now it's gonna happen. Thank you.
What other textures have
Just any kind of like shapes cut with slots. Like you could do a square cut or a flute is basically just a round cut
you
profile.
thinking about like a laser cutter at some point?
Probably not. I've got
No.
a coworker who's got a CNC, so I'll just dump all my work on him.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the plan. So yeah, so those kind of cuts, and then I swear I've got other textures. I've got a list somewhere of all the textures I might consider trying sometime, but yeah.
Are you a guy who likes to like hold things throughout the day and like fidget with stuff and like
Yeah,
feel
right.
textures?
Right now I'm fidgeting with the band on my sweatpants.
Okay. Yeah.
Just fidgeting
You
with this,
you like
twisting
the
it and then untwisting it and then twisting it. So I
so
hope that doesn't make any noise, but
so feeling of textures is like soothing.
less the feeling, more like the
Having
right now this is just me doing a twitch, right? Like
yeah,
just fidgeting. But
stimming.
I like the light. Like lighting on like any of the shadow lines,
I
like of the
see.
flutes. It like the fluted cabinet, if the sun wasn't setting and the light wasn't coming in from the window, if it was dark out and we only had the room lights in, it's like boring to me. But as
Sure.
soon as you get like daylight on it, it like
The
is a
depth.
shape.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
Cool. That's something I haven't messed around with. It's
mhm.
just it's intriguing.
And I think it's really interesting where the texture starts and stops. So like the lines where the texture begins and ends is kind of an
Yeah.
interesting thing too. So
That's combining that with your negative space idea would be real cool.
yeah. So I think there's like so many places you can go because like I feel like the amount of textures you can cut into wood is like a lot.
Unlimited.
Like,
It's
yeah,
unlimited. Yeah.
yeah. So we'll see what happens. But now
Yeah.
I'm officially gonna scallop the underside of that table.
I'm looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
Super sweet.
Cool,
Well,
man.
yeah,
Well,
that's all I got on design.
I hope everything goes well placing machines. You're not gonna want to move them when you place them, so don't mess it up.
Got a forklift. It's going to be easier
There you
than
go.
otherwise. I
Mm-hmm.
guess that's all I'll say. But yeah,
Do you have
thank
an
you.
aerial lift for hanging the ductwork?
No, I think we're. Yeah, I don't know how we're going to do that yet.
Might want to rent one.
There's steel beams across the ceiling that I know we can like drill some eye hooks into and strap
Okay.
it, but
Cool.
unknown.
Ladder. Big ladder. Yeah.
No OSHA violations. I can guarantee that.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yep.
Nobody go to a shop. Okay. Sounds good, man. Well, good luck and talk to you next week. Hope it goes smooth.
Yeah, same to you. Kick this week's butt.
You too.
See
Later.
ya. Thanks for tuning in this week. We'd be having these conversations with or without you because we get a lot of value out of this and we learn and grow together, but we're glad that you're here as well.
Yes, please let us know what you think of the podcast by leaving a review or a rating, but also comment or share with your friends in the woodworking or small business community. I'm Matt from Whiskey Woodshop.
And I'm Brian of Boss Man's Boutique.
Thanks for
Thanks for
listening.
listening.